too. So does the back cover. So it's kind of like that. We're just doing a few intro things. And why do I want it in your notes? Because I want you to be able to be doing your homework, which you should always do with your notes, need the unit circle, and not have to Google it. If you don't have it right off top of your mind or right top of your brain, or you've done it just from memory and something went wrong, I want you to be able to look really quickly, beginning of your notes. It's right there and you can check it. I see some people folding their page. That's a great idea to go ahead and center it. Does anybody else need a cup? Bugger threw away. Threw away. Blew away. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, Nick. Yes. It's not the greatest, but it's straight. Thanks, Rachel. I'm coming. In calculus, we're going to barely ever do degrees. So if you want to put degrees, that's totally fine. But do you have to? No, you have to put radians. That's what all the questions are going to have, are radians. Now, some of your brains go to degrees and then radians. You have a little in-between step, and that's okay. But you have to get the radians in there. The pi over 6s, pi over 4s, pi over 3s, pi over 2s. You want your coordinates, your x's and your y's. Some of you might want to also put the cheater chart. That's not a bad thing. But I do want the unit circle all the way written out. Underneath the unit circle, I'm also going to want some trig identities. Not all of them. Oh my goodness. You guys remember there were so many trig identities last year, right? I don't necessarily want all the trig identities, but I do want a few key ones. And so I'm going to go ahead, and if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to put up what Forever Card 1 is supposed to look like. I'm going to put up what Forever Card number 1 is supposed to look like. Every time there's a Forever Card, I'm going to go ahead and put some sort of highlighted box around it and label it in my notes, and you should label it in your notes as well. If you have time, could you grab out your Forevers right now and go ahead and put this in there? Yes, but you might be rushing, you might do it messily, it might get to be kind of sad, you might not have time to finish it. That's why I say you don't even need to necessarily fill out your actual Forever Cards in class. But always make sure you get them in your notes. And then if you have them in your notes, you'll be able to copy them when you have time, nicely, neatly, into your Forever Cards. So, Forever number 1. It's all pre-cal. These trig identities, and then the unit circle. You're not going to have time to finish filling out your unit circle unless you're almost done with it. Go ahead and get down to the trig identities that I want you to have. And then as you have time, tonight would be a great time to finish your unit circle and then fill out Forever Card number 1. Ideally, we have about 10 minutes left. We'll not only get Forever Card number 1, but also Forever Card number 2. So that's what I'm going to make homework tonight. I'll give you guys a couple more minutes. Not too much longer, though, on this page. Homework tonight is to start your Forever Cards. Numbers 1 and 2. In 30 seconds, I'm going to move on. What you should have is what you need from these pages. You might wonder why there aren't more trig identities, because we did have this huge page last year, like front and back, and even then there were more identities than that you guys were writing on your formula card for the final, etc. It's because in calculus, you're not necessarily tested very often on these trig identities, but just every now and then they come up in that you've gotten one form of an answer, needing to match it. It's like a multiple choice question, a non-calculator multiple choice question, and they meaning whoever, the AP guys, the textbook guys, whoever formed the question itself, they have simplified using a property or using a trig identity. And so your answer does not appear in the correct answers. And the only way to make a correct match to get it right is to use one of these identities. Now, it doesn't happen very often, but these are the ones that you're going to see that you're going to need to use, or that you're going to need just kind of in the back of your brain just in case you were to get something like 2 sine x cosine x. And that is not present in any of the multiple choice answers, or if it is present, this is what they like to do, something is a little wrong with the rest of the answer. So you're like, oh, it looks like mine, it's a little bit off, oh, I must have been wrong. Circle it, and they've used an identity so that their answer looks very different, but is perfectly correct. It's a struggle, those AP guys. But I'll get you there. Forever card number 2. Let me show you what forever card number 2 is going to be. It's going to overwhelm you just a little bit. Here's forever card number 2. Yes, forever card number 2 has quite a few graphs. And actually, there is another 1 graph that I kind of want to add. I'm going to go ahead and full screen it just so you guys can get it set up in your notes. You don't necessarily, you can go by 2s, that's how I did it. In your forever card itself, this is probably how you want to set it up, in the sense of having 8 on one side and 8 on the other. The trig graphs get a little bit messy. You might even want to color code, because we're not just going to do sine and cosine, we're also going to do cosecant and secant on those graphs. I have tangent and cotangent separate because we're actually going to do one on tangent. We're not going to do cotangent on him, we're going to do tangent inverse on him. So there's going to be a lot on forever card number 2. Let me scroll down a little bit so you can at least see each of the different functions that we're going to sketch. I might not get to every single one today with quite as much detail, but you guys can, well, I can't show you much better. Let me do this. You can format your card to be ready. Does that make sense? You might not get every single sketch in class today, but you can format your card to be ready. So if I were you, I'd split the card in half, kind of like the last card. But before I start sketching these functions, yeah, because there's going to be times where your forever cards, even though it's a great resource to be studying, you're not going to have these always on you, probably. But what should you always have on you when you're doing problems is your spiral and your notebook. So I want it in your notes. You can always look back. And in class, I never want you rushing and writing stuff in your forever cards itself. So that's why you get it in your notes, get it there, and then take your time in your forever cards. Okay, I'm going to pause for just 1 second. You can keep writing as long as you can multitask and listen. This is very important. Your forever cards. These forever cards that I'm showing you right now, I no longer have kids do it the exact same way. Okay? These forever cards, this person did like kind of front and back and was writing stuff all over the place, and it was kind of, it was not bad, it was good, it was how I did it for like 7 years. But then all of a sudden, I don't even know what made me think of it. I think it was actually Quizlet. I think that's what it was. where you can put a title on one side and then you can put the information on the other, so you can actually like flashcard it in the sense of like, oh wait, what is this? Pythagorean identity. Oh yeah, that's right. Here's what we're going to do with our forever cards. Instead of starting forwards, forever card 1 being here, where you can see the information right away, we're going to start backwards. And here's why. When we start backwards, this nice non-line side, you're not going to put this information, or I should say forever card number 1 information. On this nice side, you're going to instead put forever 1. You can either put like a big old title, you can put it up here, you can put it down here, somewhere, forever number 1. But then you're going to put something like, maybe even draw the half and say unit circle, and then say trig identities and give titles. You're going to say what is on the other side. So that way, when you're studying, you can look at it and be like, ooh, the Pythagorean, sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. Ha! Quotient properties. Oh, tangent is sine over cosine, cotangent is cosine over sine. Ha! You can actually use them to study, not just stare at them all day. So what we're going to do is, here's a good example. Starting backwards, you're going to put a title. So then the title for this one is going to be basic graphs. And when you put basic graphs, maybe you're going to put the constant graph, the identity graph, and that way you can look at the names and you can be like, do I know what it looks like? Do I know what it looks like? Do I know what it looks like? And then check the answer key on the other side. Does that make sense? So what we're going to be doing is putting titles on the blank side. That's why we're going to start backwards. We're going to put titles, and that way it's going to be forever card 1, title, unit circle, trig identities. Forever card 2, basic graphs. Forever card 3, special limits, I think is what it is. You're going to put titles on this side. And if you want, and this is what I would advise, you should also not just put the title of the card, basic graph, but also the specific graphs. You can put 1, constant, 2, identity, 3, and that way you can be like, okay, in my head, parabola, got it. In my head, the cubic one, got it. In my head, absolute values, got it. And you can then go ahead and check your answers as you study. Does that make sense? Okay. We're going to end off class today, you just getting down the different titles. You can take a picture of it, totally fine. Tomorrow I'm going to make sure that you have the sketches right. So if you fill out, I apologize, when you start formatting your forever cards, we're going to check tomorrow that you know what's going on with formatting your forever cards. So we're going to check book cover, expo marker, and forever cards number 1 and 2. You don't have to fill in these, but if you have it ready to go in your forever cards with the little graphs, then we can just come in tomorrow and make sure you have the correct sketches. Sound good? Any questions? Nick? Oh, sorry. This one is 1 over x squared. I can't do like an exponent in a fraction. It doesn't work. So sorry, 1 over x squared. I'm going to go move my mouse. 7 is 1 over x, and 8 is 1 over x squared. All right, cool, kids. With that, I think you have like 10 seconds. Any other questions for tonight? It's up to you. But just think, if you do it in pen, some people needed to white out and it really annoyed them. I would like them in pen for me personally because it would look nicer and it wouldn't like rub. But you just have to be really careful. Hence why we're not doing them in class. So it's up to you. I'll take it both ways. If you want to do pencil because you're like, no, I can't handle the white out. Or pen, and I'm just going to go super slow all year when I'm writing out my forevers, which is good too for studying, but it's your choice. Out of here. Assembly, chapel schedule. I'll see the girls anyway during chapel, assembly, whatever it's called. Guys, have fun in yours too. Don't forget your forms.